Welcome back to the Pro Football Doc podcast, part 2. And we're lucky enough to have our special guest co-host, Hembo from Get Up and ESPN. And thanks for staying with us. What do you think about 17 games now that it's here in Rio?
I think it's a much bigger deal than people are letting on. I mean, the NFL hasn't changed its schedule since 1978. It went from 14 to 16 games, and it hasn't played an odd number of games, if I'm not mistaken, since 1946 when they played an 11-game schedule, which seems to bother some people for some reason. I mean, personally, like as a fan of the sport, it's simple. Like more football equals good. That's how I see it. Yeah. I understand it's not nearly that simple for people working in the industry, getting into the industry. It changes the math across the board. It's going to alter the record books substantially. I think what it's also going to do naturally is drive revenues up, and thus you're going to see quarterbacks be paid astronomical amounts of money. Like, I think the people that are going to benefit most from it are going to be the quarterbacks, and they're not going to be the ones that have to bear the brunt of that 17th game because they're so well protected. I guess that would be my sort of big takeaway from the 17th game. But ultimately, it's hard for me to argue that it's a bad thing for the sport given its popularity at the moment.
Yeah, I've had a different suggestion for years, but as far as 17 games, as I've thought about it, here's what I think is going to happen. I really think the league wanted 18. They just couldn't get to 18. So they take 17 and try and get to 18, not in another 30 years, but in another 3 years, with the health and safety, getting to 18 and an even number wasn't tenable. And I think in the meantime, what they're going to end up doing is that 17th game is going to be a neutral site game, overseas, expand the game, and once again, more revenue. The NFL is not dumb, right? They're very, very, very smart. And so what I have always said was my proposal always was to once again, I don't know how to get this. Here we go. Screen to share where I want it, but whatever, I'll skip it. I've said that that I've always felt that a better solution would be a 16 game schedule across 18 weeks instead of 17 games across 18 weeks. And you'll probably tell me in 2 seconds the last time there was 2 buys, whatever, a long time ago. That was a different time era. And that's nowadays. Back in the day, if the Chargers weren't playing, people in San Diego wouldn't watch football on Sunday. Now you're watching the 10 a.m. game, 1 p.m. game, the night game, the Monday night game, Thursday night game. And so the effect of a bye is not as great. And for health and safety, I mean, imagine if you have a bye week 5, you're hurting for one by the end of the season. If you don't have one till week 13, you're waiting for one. I think you could have gone 16 games across 18 weeks and still had the revenue increase because it's all about TV. And,
correct.
Does it really matter if there's 7 games on Sunday at 1 p.m. or 8 games or 9 games? I mean, you can't watch them all anyways. It would be de minimis, and it wouldn't hurt health anymore. It'd still be the same product, the same records. But also, think about this. Thursday night football with short rest. If you had 2 bye weeks, you could make every team that plays on Thursday come off an 11-day rest coming off their bye and still have the 10 days after. And the health and safety for Thursday games would be gone. And I know this year we had a few midweek games, but if you really did that, you could open up Wednesday night football because if you paired it coming off a bye. And so you talk about revenue opportunities. I always thought that and safety were the way to go, but I don't know. Maybe the NFL is going to do that when they go to 20 games or 20 weeks.
There's no obvious reason to me why the double bye wouldn't or couldn't work. You mentioned they did it before. It was 1993. And from what I understand and reading about it, the biggest opposition, the biggest objections were that it watered down the schedule. But like you said, like that was a time before Red Zone. It was a time before the fan was consuming the sport the way that they are now. It's not obvious to me that would be the case still. It was tried once and only once, and clearly not executed the way that they wanted. But I do think that because adding another bye satisfies the health and safety issue to an extent to which they could reconcile increasing the number of games to 18. adding the 17th game, I'm sure you've seen lots of players on social media and their objections to it, makes the league look as if they don't care enough about it, or at least they care about the money more. And the optics of that aren't ideal. I'm with you. Like, there's no obvious reason why the second bye couldn't work. And by adding that, you might put yourself in a better position to actually extend the season by another game, and thus make even more money than they're doing now, trying to cram 17 and 18.
Well, let me tell you, the first thing players look at when the schedule's released, the first thing players look at is when's the bye. The second thing they look at is when are the big games, the Sunday night and Monday night, the big games. I can tell you the first thing the wives looked at were, are there any Thanksgiving or Christmas games? And I can tell you the first thing that I looked at is how many East Coast trips did we have away? Because that would mean I would have to kill my Friday schedule to leave with the team. So everyone looked at their different things. But let me tell you, players looked at when the bye was first in general. That's what they.
That's wild. That's wild.
You already know the opponents, you just don't know when, right? I mean,
yeah,
when this comes out. So that's a little tidbit there. Next topic here, maybe we'll skip over briefly. I've written about it, and I think it's, no matter the outcome, it's just not a happy situation down in Houston. I mean, I hope the truth comes out. I'm not going to impugn any innocence or guilt on any of the parties, but 19 now, 20 lawsuits. One thing I'll say, I did come out and say, and some people thought, Hembo, that I was going against Deshaun Watson. I wasn't. From all things, he's a really good kid, and I've written about it, articles, etc. But it's just unusual medically, the medical staff. Massage therapy is part of your medical treatment in some ways, recovery, rehab, and injury prevention. I mean, guys are more likely to fly out their personal massage therapist and stay in the team hotel on the road than use the visiting team recommendations or local recommendations. Because the local ones may be very good, but they just don't do the same type that you're used to. And all that hopping around was very unusual. Now, I get it if you're a rookie and you're trying to find one you're comfortable with, but this seems to be a pattern. But on the other hand, I think he's getting roasted a little bit where they're all saying the same thing. Of course, they're all saying the same thing. They're all filed by the same attorney, right? I mean, the lawsuits. So of course he's using the same language. So I hope it works out for him, but I just wanted to take this podcast to say that I wasn't trying to come at Deshaun Watson. I was just staying in my medical lane and saying, it's unusual to jump around so much. Look, players in the locker room before a game, before practice, so let's say 4 or 5 athletic trainers taping, and one will have a long line and the other guys won't switch. They're just, whether it's rabbit's foot luck, or whether they like it a certain way, or that's the routine. And if you're doing that to get your ankles taped, the massage therapy in some ways is the same. So it was just a medical comment and not coming at Jimmy, coming at Deshaun Watson at all. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to talk about the big trade that happened. And the big trade that happened was with the San Francisco 49ers. One of the things that we did is we did this podcast here. This is with Lonnie Paxton on February 1st. And essentially, we'll play it here.
I think he's able to play and he's a tough guy. But forget the rumors that the 49ers put in a bid for Matthew Stafford. Okay, a lot of teams do that, okay? But think about this. Think about hiding behind health. Jimmy Garoppolo was injured week 2. First quarter, I still remember it. We were in this room, saw it, and said, oh, that's a high ankle. Hopefully it doesn't, that could be a problem. He stayed in the game, said, hope it doesn't get tight on him. Halftime, he left the game. This was week 2. Week 5, he returned for the 49ers. Didn't finish the game. Didn't play that well. Perhaps rushed it a week. Week 6 and week 7, he played fine. Greater than 250 yards on that ankle. Week 8 against the Seahawks, re-injured the ankle. Didn't really take that big of a hit by video, and was said to be out 4 to 6 weeks, no surgery. This is week 8. And he disappeared. And look, I get it. The 49ers were out of it by 6 weeks left, whatever. But remember, when they were essentially out of it, they brought back George Kittle from the cuboid fracture, and there were updates about Kittle, but Garoppolo was just forgotten. Is there hiding behind health there? Look, I don't think the first time he missed 3 weeks, call it 4 because the week 5 didn't count. The next time he disappeared for 9 weeks because of the bye too. Right. And there wasn't a word about him. Now, is this related to contract where I think he can get out of the 49ers can get out? But if he were hurt,
well, in any case,
for the amount.
that's I'm going to stop that there.
But mark my words here. There's more to Jimmy G
going here
than anything, right?
Best believe it.
Yes. And
so suffice it to say, Lonnie, who's friends with Jimmy G, even agreed with me. I compare the Jimmy G situation like Jared Goff. When Jared Goff didn't start that game, people gave me grief, that playoff game in Seattle. It's like, he can start. But obviously he came in the first quarter and finished the game. And what told me the Rams had soured on Jared Goff was they didn't activate Blake Bortles. Nobody goes into a playoff game with 1.5 quarterbacks. If they weren't sure about Goff's health, they would have started Wolford but activated Bortles. But they didn't activate Bortles, and Goff indeed finished the game. That told me whether Goff is here and Wolford is here, or Wolford is here and Goff is here, that they were closer than you thought, and now the trade. Jimmy G, I'm not saying he won't be with the 49ers, but obviously no one trades up to 3 to not get a quarterback. So he's Alex Smith with Patrick Mahomes being drafted, or he's probably, maybe he's still be on the roster this year, or maybe not, I don't know, but clearly he's fallen out of favor. And by looking at the ankle injury, I think, and that was over a month ago, 6-8 weeks ago, you could tell that there was something not quite right there. So, but maybe this will spur him on. I wrote last week when Drew Brees' retirement, how, and you can look it up, how that getting Phillip Rivers spurred him on ultimately because he wasn't great. And that's why we drafted / traded for Phillip Rivers, right? Drew had lost his starting job year 3 to Doug Flutie part of the time. And then we got in Rivers, and then so maybe Jimmy G will do the same thing. Any thoughts on that? Or
yeah, in your judgment, do you believe that the 49ers souring, as you put it, on Garoppolo is health related, is performance related, or some combination thereof? Because the data suggests that when he's healthy, they're good, really good. And obviously he's missed 23 games in the last 3 seasons, and that's a massive data point. But is that predictive in your judgment, or is that just kind of fluky? Because, to me, like, Kyle's proven he can win with all sorts of different quarterbacks, and to move heaven and earth to, take the 3rd best quarterback in this year's draft is sort of a rebuke on Jimmy Garoppolo, as you put it.
Well, I hate the term injury prone. Anyone who plays football is injury prone. It's not a contact sport. It is a collision sport, much different. And Jimmy Garoppolo's injuries, the high ankles and the ACL, were collisions and hits. And I always said, my friend Phillip Rivers has a long streak. Matthew Stafford, very tough guy, has had his injuries, but quite a streak as well. Eli Manning stayed healthy, but it's staying in the pocket and getting rid of the ball is how you stay healthy. I don't care if you're Cam Newton and this extreme athlete, bigger than most players and faster. There's 11 of them trying to hit you and only one of you. So I don't care how big you are. And Jimmy G, and I said that after, remember the first ACL, he got the first down. He could have just gone out of bounds. To his credit, he was trying to do more and trying to get that extra 3 or 5 yards is how he tore his ACL. The high ankles came from extending plays instead of throwing the ball away. So maybe it's a matter of that. But, and I know people also say, well, they of course lost faith in Jimmy G because in the 4th quarter of that Super Bowl against the Chiefs, they didn't trust him to throw the ball. I don't know. Or was that Kyle Shanahan reliving 28-3, where he got criticized for throwing the ball, right? Was that lack of faith in Jimmy G, or his remembering the nightmare of that Super Bowl with the Falcons where he should have been more conservative, and he was. So I don't know if that's the moment they soured on Jimmy G. But at some point in time, look, I'm not saying they hate him. He still may be the day one starter, but clearly long term they're not believing in him, and that's all I was sort of saying. But thanks for asking that injury question. I don't buy that. Look, Tony Romo, I've talked about this a lot. Look, Dak Prescott injured on a quarterback draw out of the pocket. When Aaron Rodgers has been injured, it's been extending plays out of the pocket. When Tony Romo broke his collarbone, broke his back, did all these things, it was what? Tony was one of what? The best play extenders around. And he would get hurt extending plays. So as you get older, you think you can get away with that, but you're that split second slower and you get caught and you get hurt. Like, I thought Tony Romo could have still played, but he'd have to change his game to not be the play extender, right? Extending plays is where all the risk is. And so I think that's my take on that.
And what's curious is that the quarterback run game is more popular now than ever. Like, there were nearly 10,000 rush yards last year by quarterbacks, which is more than a 50% increase from just 5 years ago. So teams are doing that math themselves and still deciding we're willing to take that chance because there's so much value can be added in the quarterback run game. It's a curious dynamic because what you're saying is irrefutable. But what's also true is that you're seeing evidence of teams prioritizing the quarterback run game because of how much value that it provides and taking that chance with it.
And my compromise would be, if I were still in the league, I would lobby the coaches and people to say, look, yes, you want a mobile quarterback and you want him to run out of necessity, not as part of the offense. In other words, running on third down is fantastic. It's 3rd and 8. You get that first down. That's key. So limit your exposures. Limit the times you take that double black diamond ski run. Don't ski that start to finish. Don't make that part and parcel of your offense. Make it running out of necessity at the right time, as opposed to on a regular basis running a quarterback draw on first down.
Right.
Being more controlled with what it is, kind of situation, and not RPO right off the bat or whatever. Because no question, it's effective, and I would argue it might be more effective as a change of pace. But look, the more ski runs you take, the more likely you're going to be injured, right? And the more times you run that quarterback, way back when I learned this, it's all about avoiding hits. It's not about being tough taking hits. Let's say a running back carries the ball 20 times. Let's say, you know the stats better than me, you probably could recite them. Let's say he runs out of bounds 4 times. So there's 16 times he's taking a hit. Sometimes by one player, sometimes a bunch, some harder than. But out of those 16 times he's taking a hit, he's probably hit by 8 different guys. But the running back is taking 16 hits.
Right.
From 8 different guys. So they're sore as you are, right? I mean,
is there a quarterback in the league right now that you think avoids hits better than any other? Which is to say, a team could justify him running the ball 10, 12, 15 times a game because the avoidance of that, he's so effective that you can nullify the risk, in part because it's a part of his repertoire.
Well, 3 names immediately come to mind, and I'm not saying that whatever. One, I guess technically he's not in the game right now, is Phillip Rivers, because he gets rid of the ball because he's not mobile. Okay. I mean, he would tell you that, but he gets rid of the ball. Okay. So he tries not to take the hits. He'll make the read and say, let's go, get rid of it. The second one I'd say is, so far, he seems to have avoided anything because he is so fast and so good. And a speed faster than everyone else on the field, Lamar Jackson. I mean, you have to mention to hit him. No one's caught him yet. Now, over time, of course, he's going to have to slow down. So is it sustainable? I would argue no. But for right now, it's certainly working great, right? So he's one. But I would say, believe it or not, Patrick Mahomes, and I'll even throw in Tom Brady, just because they're just, they're the pinnacles of the game. Patrick Mahomes truly runs the ball. But I took the over rushing yard prop in the Super Bowl because I didn't believe in the Chiefs' offensive line and the scrambles. He hit it in the first quarter. But those planned rushes, those were, I'm trying to make something happen. So those, I think, are okay, right? They're not part of the deal. So I think the Chiefs use Patrick Mahomes pretty well. And he's so special that no one runs at him hard because they think he's going to do some Mahomes magic, right? And so they're respecting that. So he holds them at bay. He runs fairly safely, even with the turf toe and the previous patella. And I'll take another example. Like everyone says, Tom Brady's a great rusher in the sneaks. Once again, he does it off of necessity. He doesn't do it as part of the regular offense. It's 4th and 1, and he gets the snap count, or the A gap's not covered, and he gooses the center and he sneaks. And so out of necessity, not out of, and of course, he's not the greatest running quarterback out there. We've seen him out in a pass pattern and, dropping the ball. So that's just my medical take on it, but I'm not trying to be a coach or anything. Are you getting a vaccine, or if you get offered one?
Yes, my dad was a pharmacist. I was supposed to be a 4th generation pharmacist, and instead I'm doing this. So that makes me a failure. That also makes me obligated to get the vaccination whenever that becomes available to me. Just to circle back real quickly, because you brought it up. Last season, just to make your point about how many hits these guys are taking, only about 8.8% of rush attempts last season were such that the runner was untouched, was not contacted, which is to say it's very difficult to manage, like even if your quarterback is doing so shrewdly, it's still very, very challenging for him to avoid. Even 1 out of 10 is a better than league average rate in that sense. So I was able to look that up during the last few minutes.
Christian, my producer, I'm talking to him. We couldn't have Hembo do the pop up there. That would have been great.
Flash it.
No, that's awesome. No, the footnote on vaccines is that there was news this week that the players will not be required to take it. And I just chuckled at that, because there's no way you can require anyone to get an injection invasive of a substance into their body. Force someone to have surgery, even though it's indicated. You cannot force someone to have a vaccine. When every year we would do the flu vaccine, the regular flu vaccine back in the day, we couldn't get all the players to do that. The highest we got was maybe 80%. And we lobbied the team and said, I'm fine. I'm not going to be sick. I don't want to take it. And they also didn't want to risk maybe getting sick for a day afterwards, right? And so I would have to say, well, look, I'm taking the flu vaccine. You should too. But it still would be nowhere near 100%. So I think the NFL is smart not to even go down that path, kind of thing. And you ever come to Qualcomm Stadium?
Never been there.
And you never will at this point in time. Showing the video here. This is the last light stanchion at Qualcomm Stadium. And it is now flat land. There is nothing.
Oh my goodness.
So, it wasn't the greatest stadium in the world, but I don't know, little touching to me. Like, I still call it Qualcomm, right? People called it Jack Murphy SDU Stadium, but Qualcomm, and so that's a little bit sad. But we'll finish off here, Hembo, with and jump in anytime. I'll do 2 fun videos here. What happened here during this regular season? I have something called Beast of the Week, like Dak Prescott breaking his ankle, picking his leg up, slamming it to try and straighten the ankle, and then realizing it doesn't work. I mean, he's a beast for doing that. So this is just some fun videos of what happened here, and that people send me. The first one I will show you here. I actually worked WWE, believe it or not. That's one of the other things that I had done over time. And so I just thought this is a fun little video. That kick's okay. That one hurts. Now watch this here. Look at how Dad saves him, not only with his big pillow belly, but look at his right arm. Oh yeah, with the catch, preventing injury. That's a well-trained dad with WWE and avoiding, and I think both of them avoided real injury until and unless Mom sees the video, then Dad might be injured.
Yeah, this video trending is probably bad news for him. I'm sure his wife will come across it at some point.
Yeah, and but he can argue safe because he put the arm up as well as the big pillow. That's quite the off the top rope tumble. But here's one that is an anniversary. And here, Randy, remember this one? Randy Johnson.
Oh yeah.
I'm not PETA. I don't want PETA to come after me, but they say, on a golf course, the tree is 90% air. This is amazing. It looks like the bird is 90% air, right? I mean, the ball gets through. It wasn't a strike, but it made it all the way to the backstop. I mean,
yeah, this is the only. I mean, baseball's been played since about 1870 in organized fashion, and this is the only instance of this kind that's been recorded to my knowledge. Which is to say, it's so incredibly rare. But the fact that it was Randy Johnson makes it perfect. Really, I mean, he threw so hard the bird practically disintegrated. I think there's a good chance we never see it again in our lifetime.
No, that's
obviously.
Hembo, thank you so much. Thanks for joining me. I mean, we don't even know each other, and you're so kind to come on. I love your stuff. You're trailblazing. And yes, sports jobs. I'm 1-0 against Hembo trivia.
Yeah.
You notice how, since I sneakily got out without you asking me a trivia question, because
Hey,
I was able to get it right.
It's your podcast, man. Your rules, house rules here.
All right. Anything else you want to plug or say to everyone before we sign off? Thanks for co-hosting and the whole deal.
It was a pleasure, man. Again, I'm on Get Up every day, 8 to 10 o'clock Eastern, here on the East Coast, and then on Greeny's radio show, 10 to 12 o'clock Eastern on ESPN Radio. So we're having a good time with it. Lots of fun talking football in the off season, and I'm hopeful that you and I can do this again sometime, maybe soon.
Anytime. Thank you again, Hembo. Appreciate you. All right, that's it for the Pro Football Doc podcast for this week. I hope you found that a fun segment. It met all my expectations. I knew it would be fun, and I got the shout out to my guy Junior for sports jobs too, so that's good. Love carrying on that tradition. Thanks a lot, and thanks for listening to the Pro Football Doc podcast.